could do. And then we had to live.
This is over. Let me out. I need to get out of here. It's over. What's going on? Let me out!
You don't have to do this! This world is broken, but we don't have to be. And sometimes all it takes is one person.
We get to start over. We're the ones who live.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Turn Apart. Today we're gonna be talking about The Walking Dead. I know, I said that I was never gonna talk about The Walking Dead ever again. And my last videos on The Walking Dead were some of the most poorly received videos that I made in this channel's entire history. And I still don't know why. Let me know actually in the comments if you're tired of me talking of The Walking Dead. I promise I will stop for a while.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
I mean, I know why, because I had to rewatch them to make this video. But anyways, I'm here yet again because I felt like that I had to conclude this chapter. Since the last time season 11 has come out, we've gone on a break and less of a break and then even more of a break, and finally all the episodes are out. So I was like, let's catch up all of the Walking Dead episodes and actually finish with this story. Mostly because even though I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, even though I kind of like stopped caring after season 8 or 9 approximately, I always wondered how are they gonna end it? Is it gonna be ending like in the comics? Is it gonna be as bad? Because yes, I'm gonna say something controversial. The Walking Dead ending in the TV series is much better than the one in the comics. But I don't know whether this is just a thing about being an European reading the Walking Dead comics, and the whole idea of like going back to like a Western civilization feels like so incredibly stupid. It feels like that thing of like the American dream, but just turned upside down. It's just so stupid. I just can't imagine like a society going back to so far behind instead of trying to get back to speed. I feel like they were trying to take the easy way out by doing such a drastic jump in time, and it just didn't work out. So I was like, I need to answer that question. I need to actually watch The Walking Dead again, try to get invested again into these characters so that we can answer that question.
I don't need sleep. I need answers.
The Walking Dead final episode is actually incredibly emotional, and I felt that they actually managed to do something quite interesting. Even though it was a bit melodramatic, of course, we get a weird montages with everybody's faces coming in and out, fading in and out. They could have like not done that and just done it in a more subtle way. It just felt like a show from the 80s. That's the kind of stuff they used to do like in the 80s and the 90s when doing like in memoriam when it comes to real actors who actually died. And they did that for characters that we hadn't seen in a really long time, and it just felt a bit cheap.
We're love, and love is endless. So we, those gone,
All of our lives
those away,
become in one life.
we are endless.
It's the kind of thing you could do for YouTube. It's not really the kind of thing you could do for a final episode of a show. But anyways, I'm gonna go back and forth in the timeline. I wanted to make this video even though I knew that it was gonna take a lot of effort, it was gonna take a lot of time, and at the end of the day, most of my viewers wouldn't give a shit about it because most people just don't care about The Walking Dead anymore. But I had to do it, I had to close this chapter. Last time I didn't even mention the fact that I have a Walking Dead tattoo here. It played a huge part in my life when I was at university, when I was in high school as well. I've been a huge advocate of Walking Dead for so long, trying to convince so many of my friends to give it another chance, give it another chance. So I was like, I need to do this for my own mental health, and I need to tell you all my thoughts for the final seasons, try and give you a bit of a retrospective on what the legacy of The Walking Dead is gonna be and how maybe it's completely changed the zombie subgenre, whether it is on the small screen or the big screen as well.
Stop acting like you know the way ahead, like you know the rules. There are no rules, man. We're lost.
No.
Let's start by giving a bit of a review of season 11, which was a bit uneven. There was a lot of good and there was a lot of bad. The really good part is mostly the ending, so all the Commonwealth related stuff, and the entire subplot with the Reapers was so incredibly stupid. Plus, they do the thing that they've been doing for so long where we actually get to kill the villain, and then there is like a secondary villain who manages to escape and comes back like a couple of episodes later, and we have to deal with them.
Surprise, motherfucker.
They did that with Gareth, so the cannibals from Sanctuary. They did that with Negan, of course, over and over again by stretching out his storyline way too long. They did that with the Whisperers when Alpha was killed and Beta just hanged around for a while just for a final attack. And now they're doing the same thing with the Reapers and the girl that Daryl was in love with, who comes back to work with the Commonwealth for no reason whatsoever, and then for her to be killed and for her attack to have almost no repercussions at the end of the day, because destroying Hilltop yet another time is boring. It's fucking boring. We don't want to see it. We don't care about Hilltop anymore. And at the end of the day, it almost feels like no one is living at the Hilltop. If you just look at the manor, it's completely burnt from the time where the Whisperers attacked. And if you look at the background as well, there are not a lot of extras and it's just really weird. It just feels like Maggie was just supposed to be the character who goes against the Commonwealth because they knew how the storyline was going to end. So they needed at least one of the main characters to go against the Commonwealth, even though she had no reason to do it because Hilltop is just dying, decaying, and it makes no sense for her not to ask for help, basically. But even the whole idea that all of these people would just trust the Commonwealth so easily and they would just move everything and go over there and find jobs and they would just accept the entire way of how the Commonwealth works, it's just incredibly bad. It doesn't work from a character development for so many of our characters, and Daryl is the biggest example because he's always been the character who is on the fringes. He's always been the character who has at least 1 or 2 episodes where he needs to leave and go on the countryside and do whatever the hell. And actually, it's what happens at the end of The Walking Dead. Everyone is just having their jobs and their houses, and Daryl is just on his bike being like, I can't do this. I'm like a cowboy. I have to go around and do cowboy things, which is so stupid. It's so incredibly stupid that they're still going with that. They're not basically giving Daryl any kind of character resolution. So the character development for him, it was basically to go from like hillbilly kind of outsider to a member of like a community, of a family, etc. But they never actually give him the resolution to want to create a family. Maybe you don't even need to create a family. Like the thing that he did with his dog was good enough, you know? But the idea of like creating a home, it's just so weird. They're just taking this personality trait of him and they take it as granted and they take it as something that could not change, even though it's not true, because like the older you get, the more your personality changes as well, and there is no such thing as core personality traits. People keep changing across their entire lives, especially if they are in an environment that keeps changing, which is the case for The Walking Dead. But anyways, let's not like talk about each character, otherwise we would go insane. For example, if I wanted to talk about Eugene, which makes no sense at all, you know, like basically his entire character development was about him not being a coward, and that's the only thing they gave to him, and they try to re-exploit that in the final episodes of The Walking Dead, where basically he sacrifices himself to save someone else, and then all of a sudden he's like incredibly brave and he's like wearing this gun and going around gun blazing and whatever the hell, even though I felt like we just went through that way before with the Negan storyline, with season 7, season 8, season 9 maybe even. So it just feels incredibly weird to rehash all of that. And this is a big critique that I have and a lot of people have had when it comes to The Walking Dead, is that it's just not consistent when it comes to the characters, when it comes to the plots. It's just not consistent enough to be believable. It probably happens with shows that have such a long time span, but at the same time, so if you look at things like Breaking Bad, it had a lot of seasons, it still managed to be consistent. I'm trying to think of something else. Friends is not a good example because it's a sitcom, but I can't think of another example where they did 10 seasons consistently well written, you know? Very often it gets up to 5 and then they stop, like BoJack Horseman, Breaking Bad, as I said before. Maybe that's the reason. They should have stopped way earlier.
Just look at the flowers. Just look at the flowers.
And something that I did say and talk about in the other videos was the fact that the Negan storyline needed to be compressed, and basically they should have finished around season 8. They should not have gone at season 11. They should have deleted a lot of things that were completely unnecessary, like the garbage people that Rick tries to convince to work with them against Negan. Those people were completely useless. The Reapers, completely useless in season 11. They're trying to stretch some things out of proportion and it's not good. And the worst thing is that They don't even know which good things need to be stretched and which things just need to be abandoned. Let's take an example. The whole Commonwealth plot is 100% better in the TV show than the comics. It's way more developed, there is a lot of political machinations. It reminds me also the stuff that was going on in season 2 and 3 with the governor. So people like trying to manipulate each other, giving you a sense of security and safety, and still doing like dirty stuff like in the background. The whole idea of having the work camps was so good, and it was basically teased and done in like 2, maybe even 3 episodes, even though it should be something that needed to be explored way more. So I feel like if they deleted the Reapers, deleted half of the plot with betas, and you already have like almost 1 season where you can just focus on the Commonwealth and making us care about it, or at least make sure that our main characters still think in the way that Rick did when he arrived to Alexandria, being like, if there is something wrong, we can maybe take over.
We have to control who lives here.
That's never been more clear to me than it is right now.
Me? You mean me?
But there is none of them who actually talk about that kind of stuff, and it's so weird. They've survived through so much stuff, so many people trying to kind of like impose their own way of seeing the world to them. Negan, the Whisperers, and other people just in general, the Wolves as well. And now the Commonwealth comes, and just because these people are just like dressed like stormtroopers, they're gonna immediately believe them, and they're basically gonna give up their individuality to be part of this weird community, and also give up their authority. Because of course, if you're part of the Commonwealth, you are part of the governor's like plan, and you basically have no power over it. They didn't actually discuss how it worked, whether there was still like a mayor of each commune, or whether it was actually like the bad thing that we saw in the end, where, well, they don't care about expanding to other communes and actually creating like a state, but they actually just want to give you that impression, and then they steal everything from you and they create outposts. It wasn't really clear, and it was revealed as a plot twist, for example, that Alexandria became one of the outposts. Same thing with Oceanside. We never see them being liberated, for example, so we have no idea how Oceanside managed to be freed of the Commonwealth. And the Alexandria part was incredibly interesting, but it just lasted not long enough. And it was also so incredibly weird that they would manage to like stage a coup, but only through killing like basically one person, the guy, and to convince all the guards of the Commonwealth to just lay down their arms, and everything would go down smoothly. It was just so weird.
You don't have to do this! This world is broken, but we don't have to be.
A few moments later.
I actually preferred way more the plot lines with the hordes, and also the fact that the governor was using all of that stuff to manipulate the audiences, to make sure they wouldn't be able to go on strikes, so they would be forced to be at home, and to fold back into that idea of safety, security that the governor is actually giving to them. The whole thing was incredibly good. The whole idea of her, for example, deciding to save only the wealthy districts because they're easier to protect, that was really good as well. So the entire part of the plot was really good. The idea of putting her in prison in the same way that they did with Negan was really good as well. Did you notice that by the end of the episodes and the end of the season, almost none of our main characters die? That's so stupid. I'm sorry, but that's so stupid. It would have made it easier for the writing team as well if some of them died. We have some people who get bitten and then they get their arms cut off. We get like the guy from like Fantastic Beasts who comes around for just like 1 or 2 episodes only to get killed off like almost immediately.
Who the fuck is that guy?
So they did it on purpose just to kill him off, basically. It was just so stupid. That's the thing when I'm like, Walking Dead used to be almost at the same level as Game of Thrones when it comes to just shocking you with like brutal violence towards our main characters.
Back to it.
they did exactly the same mistakes where they got so scared of like what the fans would react. After basically the Glenn thing, they just didn't take any risks anymore. That's what it felt like. Maybe the moment where the Whisperers like killed Jesus and all of the other people and they put like the heads on the spikes, that's the last moment where they took some risks, but we don't lose any of the main characters, and it doesn't count if you get bitten and then you die because of that. So I'm sorry, but the fact that Rosita dies in the end and she's happy to be having a final meal with her friends, I don't think that it counts. It's not dramatic. It's a normal way to die. Literally, she could have tripped and fell and broke her head. It would have literally made the same impact to me, just because we're so used to people being bitten and dying like that. It's just not dramatized anymore. It's not cool. And it was so weird. So I didn't like that. It just didn't feel realistic. If we go back to the character as well, we've got Ezekiel and Negan talking to each other for the first time, maybe forever, since Negan got deposed basically from the Savior's outpost. Is that even possible? Is it real that they haven't actually talked since then? It felt so stupid. It felt so rushed as well. The whole like thing that they're trying to build between Maggie and Negan, incredibly useless, incredibly stupid. Like there was a point, I think, between season 10 and 11 where they were trying to tease us that Negan would go back to his old ways.
If you stay here, she will kill you. I just didn't want your death on my conscience, and now it's not.
Fair enough.
But no, like he's on a path of redemption, so that tease was completely stupid. Like there was a lot of trailers which tease us the idea of Negan going bad again. And the whole basically 11th season is all about Maggie trying to forgive Negan or something like that. And there are some points where it really feels like she has, but no, even in the last episode she has to sit him down and be like, no, I will never forgive you. Every single time I look at you, I see Glenn's face and what you did to him and you laughing and blah blah blah. And it's supposed to be a really powerful moment, but it doesn't feel like that just because so much time has passed.
Even though I know that you're trying, I'm trying to. Because I don't want to hate you anymore. I don't want to hurt like that.
Remember, there was a jump in time as well. We had a jump in time like right when Rick basically disappeared. So much time has passed since then. I did like the idea of playing the thing between Negan and Maggie's son. That was an interesting dynamic because he needed to be old enough to be able to have those kind of conversations with Negan. So that was interesting. But the Maggie part just doesn't make sense anymore. If you have Daryl, if you have Carol, who have forgiven Negan after so much shit was done to them. I mean, he literally tortured Daryl. Do you remember?
Don't. Please don't.
We're on easy street.
He tortured Daryl. And if he managed to forgive him, why is Maggie not able to? It feels like one of those things that they do just because it creates tensions in between the characters and it's entertaining, it's fascinating. Mostly because I realized that there are not that many tensions in between our main cast. They've tried to survive together for so long that they almost never argue. They don't have any reasons to be mad at each other. And I feel like the Commonwealth thing could have been a good chance for them to kind of like fight against each other, not necessarily, but to have like those different ideals and for them to basically outgrow each other's like friendships, because before they had to be together to survive. Now they actually have a choice to go back to civilization and that kind of stuff. But all of that is not really exploited. Like the character dynamics in between the old characters are just not that interesting anymore. It almost feels like nostalgia. We like them because they remind us of a time where they were actually interesting characters.
We've all been so focused on what's right in front of us for so long. You're thinking about what's after. It's a good thing. Maybe we could all do a little more of that.
But at the end of the day, I feel like the final season works mostly because of the new characters. Mercer is a really good character, he really works. I really liked the actress who was playing the governor as well. Her son was more interesting than in the comics. He was just more three-dimensional. Even though he was a douchebag, you could understand him a bit more. And I like the way that he manipulated and he used his power to basically get people killed. The thing with the house, like where he was trying to get money, that was a very clever thing to do. And the whole idea of like the character character development with Mercer was really interesting as well, because he seemed to be like the most perfect character to be a cop, to represent law and order, to represent like a new type of living and society. But this just needed more time, and I feel like they wanted to keep the tensions up for as long as possible, trying to create more drama, because otherwise people would tune out and kind of like get bored. The whole train thing was fascinating. The whole thing about discovering all of that stuff was also incredibly fascinating. And then there is stuff that is just incredibly badly written, like the whole Eugene going completely crazy for like one episode and figuring out the conspiracy and the fact that the girl that he was with wasn't actually the girl that he was with, but she was a spy. It just didn't feel like The Walking Dead anymore. It felt like a weird show. Also, I don't know if it's a nitpick, but the entire case against Eugene was so incredibly poorly written. I could have written something better just by having seen other cases and courts in other films and TV shows. I was sitting there being like, here's one argument, here's two arguments, here's three arguments of why Eugene doesn't deserve that kind of punishment and that kind of stuff. But they didn't do that, just because the writers knew that even though he was found guilty, he would be freed by some other character. So they didn't want to spend even enough time to convince us that that entire process had stakes, because they knew that anyways he would get away with it. So we end up not caring. I didn't believe for a single second they would kill him. Actually, it would have been really interesting if they managed to get him sacrificed, meaning that maybe they hanged him or something like that, and that could have laid our main character's emotions, and they realized that basically the entire justice system of the Commonwealth is just basically going towards the rich people and the people who actually control the lawyers instead of the actual law. And that would have been a little tiny thing to like even spark more rebellion. But no, they make him escape and then they don't address that anymore, and it's just so stupid, so incredibly stupid. So the entire thing about the roamers like starting to evolve was weird. It was intriguing, but why introduce that at half of season 11 when it's the final season of The Walking Dead? And why don't you ever try to explain it? I don't necessarily need like a full-on explanation, but then I would need the roamers who can actually like use knives and climb things to do way more than they actually do. Like for people to actually die because of them, you know?
What the fuck?
It would have been really interesting for one to get stabbed, for example, by a roamer and then get eaten alive, you know? Kind of like what the Whisperer used to do. It felt just like another thing that they added last minute to create even more tension, even though it feels like a thing that should have been introduced like 3 seasons ago, so they would make everyone be even more careful when it comes to the zombies in this universe. Also, this is why I've been saying that this needed almost more seasons, but they should have shortened other stuff. It's because, do you remember how much time they actually spent dismantling these saviors? Their community, their way of working, and how basically they completely destroyed the trust in between all the different communities. It took a long time. It took almost 3 seasons. Like 1 season of building up and 2 seasons basically of all-out war. And now you're doing the Commonwealth, where it's basically like a season and a half where you're trying to build everything up, and they managed to destroy everything and to basically overturn Pamela in like no time. It's so weird. Negan was literally controlling like basically like 100 people, and here we have a town of like more than 50,000 people, and they managed to overturn the government in like what feels like a couple of months, you know? It's just so weird, and it just doesn't work out at the end. But this is because of everything that has been established by The Walking Dead. When you spend way too much time on a plot line, you basically create those kind of problems in the future where you have to spend even more time if the plot line feels even bigger, like a bigger universe. And that's why I'm like, if this community is so incredibly huge, they have an entire system where they can actually like make people disappear and use them in like work camps, and apparently there are a lot of work camps out there which are basically keeping the whole Commonwealth going by producing stuff and doing like hard labor, and they managed to destroy that in so little time, and it feels incredibly weird, and it was way too easy. There were so many Commonwealth guards being killed and disappearing and dying, and I was like, where are they coming from? Like the whole thing where basically the other guy whose name I can't remember right now, but Pamela's number 2 was going around trying to get his weapons back, and then that's basically when Daryl starts like fighting against him. It felt like he had millions of guards. It was so stupid that that part of the plot was going for so long, and Pamela was not noticing that anything was wrong with that. And they were not really clear with establishing also about the fact that transforming communities into outposts and basically putting people to work, was that her idea, or was that the other guy who was organizing all of that stuff stuff, and she didn't know because she basically had so much work going on at the Commonwealth capital that she didn't have the time to go out and basically control the other communities. I don't know. I still don't know. There are so many questions, like they need answers and we'll never get them.
When was the last time you got any sleep?
I don't know, 2-3 days, not important.
I feel like those are all the things that I had to say when it comes to The Walking Dead. I'm pretty sure they improved a lot of things compared them to the comics, but they also destroyed a lot of things by trying to expand some plot lines a bit too much. Problems with bottle episodes, weird flashbacks, problems with certain characters having visions and having mental health problems that they never had in the past and that appear suddenly in one episode and they never mentioned again. Thank God it doesn't happen in the 11th season, because I've seen that happening way too many times. But let's talk about the future of The Walking Dead, right? I wanted to make this video also to talk about the future of The Walking Dead, not only to complain, and also because this is probably gonna be the last video that I make about it, because I'm not gonna care anymore. My expectations are gonna be incredibly low because most of the spin-offs were so bad. If you think about Fear the Walking Dead, incredibly bad. World Beyond, incredibly bad. And I haven't actually seen all the anthology stuff that came out last year, but I haven't heard good things about it. But basically the new spin-off series which are coming out is gonna be one that is taking care of Rick and Michonne, because yes, at the very end of the episode they show that Rick and Michonne are alive, of course, and they are searching for each other and they've found each other, and basically the entire plot of that series is gonna be to find a way to go back to the Commonwealth, to Daryl and all the other characters.
Consignee Grimes, you've been located and are instructed to surrender. Remain in place with your hands up. Come on, Rick. It's like she told you. There's no escape for the living.
There's a lot of things that don't make sense with that, but there is another spin-off show which makes even less sense. It's Dead City, which is the spin-off show taking place, I think, in New York, starring Negan and Maggie. Even though they literally established 20 minutes before that teaser that they never want to talk to each other again, they don't want to be part of each other's lives.
The only way this works is if we trust each other.
We are gonna make it right.
Why do they go on an adventure together? It makes no sense at all, and they don't explain that in the final episode, and it really sucks. They will have to explain it in the spin-off series in the pilot, but it really sucks that you're creating a spin-off series where you don't understand the link in between the current season and the spin-off series. The other one that doesn't make sense, Daryl goes to Paris, and the outline of that show is he finds himself in France and he doesn't know how, and he has to go back to the US. So stupid. I actually wrote a couple of short films taking place in the Paris suburbs, and actually directed a short film as well which is called Remains, and I had the ambition of creating a Walking Dead version in France, and now they're gonna do it with Daryl, so I can't do that anymore, but it's just so weird. And apparently it's supposed to come out by the end of this year, while the Rick and Michonne show will have to come out next year, otherwise the hype will die, completely die. Mostly because Fear the Walking Dead is entering its final season right now, so if they don't do it now, no one will watch it.
Kill me. Please.
Get back in your cell.
No. 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 No, why?
Yeah, but that was basically it. That was all the things that I had to say when it comes to The Walking Dead. It's weird to talk about this show again, mostly because I have no one else to talk to about this kind of stuff. It's just you and me. And I'm saying the camera, because of course I know that there are no fans of Walking Dead out there anymore. At least I've never met them in real life. But I had to talk about this because it played such a huge part in my life. I remember I used to have a panel of quotes when I was at university, and there were a lot of quotes from The Walking Dead which helped me get through a lot of emotional stuff. So it was an important show for me at a very specific moment of my life, and I was I need to make this video to close that chapter, to give myself some closure, so to actually compare some stuff with the comics as well, because I finished the comics before seeing season 11 approximately, being disappointed by that and having that resolution with The Walking Dead show final season, kind of. It's not perfect. That's a thing that kind of sucks, because I feel The Walking Dead, if it was shorter, if they packed in a really good amount of good writing, it would have been one of the best shows in history. And it's a bit of a shame. A lot of people, when they talk about The Walking Dead and try to rank it among the best TV shows ever made, they're The Walking Dead would be in the list if it stopped at season 5 or if it stopped at season 7 or whatever. And it really sucks. I feel The Walking Dead could have been a touchstone zone when it comes to horror and zombie related shows. Also, I think that Walking Dead really helped out when it comes to taking zombies more seriously. They created an entire genre on their own. I can't remember another horror show that lasted for this long before The Walking Dead, because now we have American Horror Story, we have a lot of different ones. If you look at like Bly Manor, Haunting of Hill House, the Mike Flanagan kind of universe, we have a lot of them now. But back when The Walking Dead was coming out, there was no show like this. And even if we go back in the 80s, 90s, you probably had things like X-Files, The Twilight Zone, or even like Creepshow, but not something that would last as long as The Walking Dead, not something that would be entirely character driven and actor driven for such a long time. And it's a bit of a shame, because I feel like when we look back at the legacy of The Walking Dead, everyone will say it could have been better, could have been perfect, and they will not want to talk about it at the end of the day, and they will not be able to rank it as high as all of the other shows which changed like the scope of things basically. And it really sucks. It's kind of like Supernatural. Supernatural as well, people say the exact same thing, where if you stop at season 5, it's probably one of the best supernatural shows ever made. At the end of the day, if you look at the creature designs, if you look at this way that everything is structured, the performances, the characters, etc., and the lore as well. And same goes with The Walking Dead as well. There are so many iconic villains when you think about it, so many iconic lines, quotes, things that have gone into pop culture. But at the end of the day, even though it managed to create something beautiful for the final season and the final few episodes, it was just not consistently good, and that's what people will remember at the end of the day. But anyways, those are all the things that I had to say for when it comes to The Walking Dead. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like my videos, last week I released a really cool video where I basically gave you a review / breakdown of The Kingdom Exodus, which is the new series by Lars von Trier. So give it a watch if you like me talking about weird stuff. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to the roamers, the whisperers, the zombies, the bloaters, and all the creatures that were present in The Walking Dead. They deserve way more love than our characters gave them by stabbing them over and over again in the head. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
I love all of y'all.
Mwah. Much love to you all. I love you guys.
Thank you.
Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Da 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 da.